My name is Ayshah Price, and I'm with the Small Business Bootcamp. And right now, we're going to be talking about distribution channels. So, a distribution channel is the network of businesses or intermediaries where a good or services passes through, right, until it reaches the final buyer at the end of the consumer. So, we want to always think about, what's involved in that. We have wholesalers sometimes involved, retailers, distributors, as well as the internet. A lot of individuals are selling their products through the internet. They're also selling them to different service providers. We watched the video with Apple, and Apple sell their products online, but they're not the ones who make the product. So when we look at distribution, you really want to figure out where you want to market your product through. The more channels you distribute your product or service through, the more exposure and potential customers you will attain, right? So we do have a multi-channel distribution, and that multi-channel distribution is looking at different avenues that you can put your businesses and services through. So let's use an example. We see different vendors, and Starbucks, we'll go back to them. Starbucks has coffee, but they also have coffee and different food items, and they're not just in the little Starbucks stores. They're in Target, they're in grocery stores, right? They're in banks, they're in big corporations, they're in hotels, they're in bookstores now. So Starbucks decided, hey, you decide to put our products in different locations and different retailers, right? And then they're not dealing with, the different distributors and things of that nature, but they're deciding we're going to keep our company culture. We're going to still charge the same prices, but we're going to have different pop-up areas where clients can get their products, where they can get our product. Because when you read a book, right, they're thinking about the experience of the client. So when you go to Barnes and Noble, you go and you smell this great coffee when you walk in, and it's nice and quiet. You want to go get a book, you want to browse, you want to get a little coffee or something to sip on and eat. And they provide that environment and that experience for you. So when you're thinking about distribution channels, you want to think about what are those channels that are going to be most successful for me, right? As a business owner, as myself, as an educator, I go through the channels of education. So I utilize the school systems, I utilize the county and the government. I have different contracts that I work with. And instead of me having to advertise my services for me and pay for it, they advertise those services for me. And I just come in and I have a contract to provide those different services to their clients. They already identified what it is they want, and I'm just filling that need, right? I'm providing that service to help fill the need that they have. Okay. So there's different ways that you can use distribution medias to benefit you, and it's not always going to be as costly as you think to the business owner. So be creative. One of the other concepts we're going to talk about is SIPOC. SIPOC is a really in-depth conversation. So, and we're not going to go over all the in-depth details today due to time, of course, but there are some videos online that I do want you to watch. One of the videos is a little bit lengthy, and it talks about the process, and there's an actual flow chart, and the flow chart has different symbols that we use. So let's say, for an example, what the reason why you want to do a SIPOC flow chart, right? You want to understand, let's go over what it is. So suppliers is the input source for the process. Okay. So we are the supplier. Okay. Inputs are the resources you need to complete the process or to complete that product or service. Okay. And then process. What's the high level steps of the process that the product is going to go through until it gets to the final product, which is the output. And that's the result of the process. The output is everything you put your work and hard work into, all the different departments that have reviewed the product or the document or the services, or all the individuals that said, hey, I think this is a great product or service. We've already researched it. We've already tested it. These are we've developed a flow chart for it to see when the consumer gets the product, how do they receive it, right? And if they don't get it, or if they don't like the product, what can we do to change to make it different? So there's always going to be flaws in the process. Nothing is ever going to go, and no project, no and service that you provide or product that you provide is going to always be perfect. We do strive for perfection, but we have to think about the process, and we have to think about the pitfalls that can happen in the process, and how can we mitigate those pitfalls before they become a problem and before they affect our brand, loyalty before they affect the consumers, right? And what do we do to mitigate the situation with the consumers to make the right wrong? Okay. What are the warning signs that we have, the cautionary signs that we have, the statements that we put to let consumers know what this product does, the instructions, or if this is a contract that we're agreeing to do different services together, we need to outline that. And we're going to go over contracts and what are the terms you need in contracts in the last week. I always do that the last class, because it's very important to do any work. Do not do any work without a full written contract that's agreed upon and signed. So the customers, and when customers are buying online, they're assuming that right of that obligation. They're saying, hey, I trust you with this product or this service. I trust you. I'm going to book this appointment. I trust you. I'm going to purchase this product. Okay. I want to make the sale, but I want to make sure that I'm receiving what you said I was going to receive in the initial conversation, right? So the customers are the people who receive the outputs for the benefit from our process, okay? This SIPOC really helps you make decisions. It gives all key information about each steps of the process. It helps you improve or understand the processes and the customer experience, okay? And then it gives you a visualization. That's why I said there's an actual flow chart that goes along with it with different symbols. And we say, yes, the product got to the consumer on time upon delivery, or no, it did not. And what can we do? Or yes, part of it got there. No, this other part didn't get there. What are the steps that we're taking? So you always want to think about that. And then it gives you an opportunity to understand that process and how it impacts your customer's experience. Because we don't want a customer to, get a product or service from us and then turn around and say, hey, I didn't like it. Hey, it didn't work. It caused me problems. Or I don't like the product that you gave me, or I don't like your services, right? We want to be able to negotiate and find out what's going on. So doing that work in the beginning will help, and doing that research and testing out our products and services, looking at our pricing plans and our marketing plans and our financial plans, and making sure that we organize everything appropriately, so that way when we're delivering that item to the consumer, they're getting a finalized product and we're reaching that deadline. So with SIPOC, it's really about choosing a process. So you want to brainstorm ideas for improvement, provide a high level overview of the process to help stakeholders and yourself understand what decisions are going to be made, right? Defining the process, break the process down into 4 or 5 high level steps, each with its own actions and subject. So going back into the different goals and objectives. So really understanding what's the goals that we need to achieve, and how are we going to achieve them for this product or for this service, okay? And what's the process? Listing the outputs. So what customers are actually receiving? What are the materials, the products, the services, information, anything that's internal, any internal processes that have to go through, payments, accounting, legal, proofreading, anything that has to go on with your product or service, and before it reaches the customer, you need to outline that. Okay. And then it shows all of the outcomes that should correspond, right? So what we say the customer should receive, we want to make sure the customer will receive that. Okay. And if they don't, what is it that we can do to change that? We want to identify our customer. So who are the customers? And what, are they receiving? And what's the benefit to them in the process, right? And keep in mind, these customers, they can also include coworkers and internal stakeholders. So it's not always just to the general public. You may have internal clients that you're working with, that you're providing a product to, right? Or an agreement that you've made with them. And so they may have to work with another corporation or another company to reach those objectives or goals. So you're going to have to work together, identify who is that customer and what's the experience they're supposed to achieve. And then list the inputs, list all the things that go into it, all the resources you need for the process to function properly, any deadlines, any goals, any outputs that, materials or products or services, information, suppliers, resources that are going to need to help you complete that process, and determine where you're getting those materials from, how much they're going to cost and things of that nature. So that should align with your financial goals. And then show your diagram. So it's a really helpful tool, and it will help you, your stakeholders, your business owners, as you know, your board of directors will help you as an individual, make sure that your goals are lined up with the process, and that if a client is relying on you to deliver a product or a service, that you've outlined and looked at what are those steps that need to be taken to do that. I did say I'm going to go over costs with you, so we'll go ahead and talk about SIPOC really quick for a minute. We'll watch a video about Starbucks. I think it's really important to understand distribution channels. I can't express that to you anymore, right? Distribution channels really are a key to getting your materials out there. It's one of your marketing media avenues. And so when you're thinking about what your distribution channels are, think about those different relationships you want to make, maybe with different companies, with different organizations, with different individuals, to develop those channels for you. They may not already be there. You may have to work on some of those, right? And they may take time. You can start out small, just offering your product in different areas, in your locally to where you are, right? And then advance out to your county, advance out to different cities nearby, and then advance out to your state. And then you can start thinking about branching into different areas. I have one of my business owners, he's actually like a big partner for me. And I remember when he started out in Northern Virginia, now he has offices in different states. And so, it took time. It took him many, many, many years to get to that level, right? And it took Amazon. Remember, Amazon started out with making books. Okay, I remember getting books online for college for my class. Okay, so it doesn't happen overnight, right? But still planning it out and making sure that you have a distinct plan is always helpful. And that way, when your business plan is written out completely to the T and you write out those goals, you'll start working towards them, right? And then your business plan is going to change. I can't tell you, when I wrote my first business plan, I think I was an undergrad, and I wrote about, having this business that teaches courses and things of that nature. And I wanted it to be virtual and online. And at that time, nothing was online, right? So you have to foreshadow and you have to have hindsight and see being those innovative concepts. I don't know where the idea came from for me wanting to do it online, but then I transitioned to a lot of that online. And then for my program in the county, I'm a lead teacher, so I transitioned to us having online classes. So you have to, be innovative as a business owner and make sure you're consistently staying relevant and looking at what the market demands. All right. Thank you for your time.